From Gojo literally having the power to predict the future to this crazy foreshadowing hidden in the very first chapter of the manga, here are 20 times Jujutsu Kaisen predicted the future. Starting off with the scene where Toro and Mei Mei are shown playing ping pong. At first, it seems like it's just a fun moment, but it actually hints at something big. After Toro loses his arm in the fight against Mahito, it seems like he won't be able to use his curse technique, Boogie Woogie, anymore. However, during his fight with Sukuna, guess what he comes back with? He comes back with something that looks strikingly similar to a bat and a ping pong ball as a replacement for his arm. And while that was easy to spot, that was just one of 20 foreshadowings we'll be revealing in this video. And this next one is on a whole new level. If you only watched the anime, you wouldn't know about the shocking foreshadowing that was revealed on the front page of volume 4 of the manga. If you look closely, you'd notice an angel-like figure hidden in the background. Turns out, this was actually foreshadowing a character named Hana Kurusu, aka Angel, who wouldn't make her official debut until over 150 chapters later, which is just crazy. But an even crazier reveal can be found on the cover of the very first chapter of the manga. Yeah, you heard that right. If you take a good look at the picture, you'll notice a corpse hidden in the background. This is an obvious foreshadowing of Sukuna's mummified body, which wasn't revealed until chapter 220 by Kenjaku. This reveal happened over 200 chapters later. Crazy, right? But it gets even crazier, because if you look even closer, you'll notice some markings on the Shikigami frogs on Megumi's legs. This was clear foreshadowing of Sukuna eventually taking control of Megumi's body hundreds of chapters later. Man, this level of foreshadowing is insane. And while Oda, the creator of One Piece, is the king of foreshadowing, Gege is the prince. If you take a good look at this cover art, you'll notice two huge secrets. The first involves Yuji. We see Mahito's hand holding onto his neck, which is an obvious reference to their epic dynamic and the battle that would unfold several chapters later. But that's not all. Because if you look even closer, you'll notice Sukuna's arms wrapped around Megumi's neck, clearly foreshadowing Sukuna taking over Megumi's body in a shocking twist several chapters down the line. We just talked about Sukuna gripping Yuji's neck, which was an insane foreshadowing of their fight that would take place countless chapters later. But that wasn't the only thing foreshadowed. If you look closely at the other color spread, you'll see both Gojo and Megumi in the background. This was foreshadowing Gojo's fight against Sukuna, but with Megumi's body, which is just an insane level of foreshadowing most fans probably missed. Next, did you know that the opening theme song also had some crazy foreshadowing? Take, for example, the second opening of Season 1. If you pause at exactly 31 seconds, you'll notice everyone looking gloomy and facing downwards, except for Nanami, who's looking upwards. But there is more. Everyone else seems to be wearing black outfits, as if they're attending a funeral, while Nanami is the only one dressed in white. Why is that? Well, in Chinese and Japanese culture, white, or shiro in Japanese, is a color symbolizing death. This was an obvious foreshadowing of Nanami's death, which was animated 3 years later. But that wasn't the only hidden foreshadowing. If you pause at exactly 1 minute and 2 seconds, you'll notice an artwork featuring Mekamaru, Mai, Zenin, Miwa, and Momo. At first glance, it might seem like just another group shot, but if you look closer, you'll notice that Mekamaru is the only one shrouded in shadow. In Japanese folklore, shadows are often used as a symbol of death. This subtle detail was actually a brilliant foreshadowing of Mekamaru's tragic death that happened in Season 2. Now, this isn't the first time the animators have used shadows to hint at a character's death, because if you skip to the first opening of Season 2 and pause at exactly 1 minute and 15 seconds, you'll spot something sneaky. Everyone else is shown bathed in light, except for Geto, who's standing in the shadows. Coincidence? Definitely not. And the same can be said for Mai Zenin, who has a few shots of her in the shadows, subtly foreshadowing her tragic fate as well. Man, the animation staff level of foreshadowing is absolutely insane. Speaking of insane, some crazy foreshadowing can be found in the very first opening of Season 1. During the scene where Yuji is sitting on a train, there's a weird patterned tropical fish swimming alongside him. At first, nothing seems off, but that fish is actually a young emperor angelfish, and it holds a much deeper meaning. This species is native to the Pacific and Indian Oceans. This makes its appearance strange since the train Yuji is on is in mainland Japan, far from any ocean. However, in Japan, such fish are called Shimetsu Kaiyu Gyo, meaning death due to migration. Now you're probably wondering, where is the foreshadowing? Well, The Japanese term for the culling game is Shimetsu Kaiyu. This directly ties to the fish to the culling game arc that wouldn't be revealed until several chapters later in the manga. But that's not the only secret hidden in the opening. If you pause at this exact moment, you will notice a flower blooming from Sukuna's finger. This flower is called Fushiguro in Japanese. It's a tiny foreshadowing of Sukuna taking over Megumi's body later on. And while that was a cool foreshadowing, it's nothing compared to this next one that blew everyone's mind when it was revealed. In chapter 264 of the manga, Yuji uses a domain expansion for the first time. But that's not all, because right after using it, we both see him and Sukuna in a train station. This was a massive foreshadowing moment, as the scene was actually teased way back in the first season's opening. In that same opening scene, we could see Yuji in a train station and even see Sukuna's reflection in the train window. To make things even more interesting, it was revealed during an Animedia event interview with one of Toho's animation producers that Gege was heavily involved in the anime production, so this might have been an intended piece of foreshadowing directly from Gege. Now, let's talk about the crazy foreshadowings in the second opening of Season 2 that almost slipped by unnoticed. If you pause at exactly 1 minute and 4 seconds, you'll spot a scene where Nobara is holding her left eye. This moment, though subtle, is a tiny piece of foreshadowing. Why? Because Nobara eventually loses that same eye in episode 19, a detail that the animators cleverly teased early on. But this wasn't the only foreshadowing attached to Nobara, because her revival was actually hinted at a year before it was revealed. In the Avant music video by Eve, which features original art by Gege Akutami, there's a shattered bubble. This symbolizes Yuta creating a domain. As it breaks, a nail appears, followed by Sukuna's 4 eyes and a lone finger foreshadowing Nobara's return. This subtle yet powerful image not only hints at her revival, but also signals the importance of her curse technique in the final battle. In this scene between Yuki and Geto, we see them standing in a hallway where Yuki points to 2 separate doors. The first door she points to symbolizes a path of hatred and rejection of non-sorcerers. This is a route that Geto has already started going down. This path leads him to further misery and a deepening darkness. The second door, though, represents a different path. It's one where he can accept non-sorcerers. This would allow him to walk away from his hatred and potentially find a more peaceful, fulfilling life. This moment feels intentional, with Yuki showing Geto the choice he has, foreshadowing where each path will lead him to. In the final episode of Season 2, there's a shot of a bridge. This bridge isn't random, as it's actually the same one where Yuji, Choso, Naoya, and Yuta have their fight in the manga. This subtle detail serves as a clever foreshadowing of the culling game arc. Before we continue, if you're having a great time so far and want to be entered in our video shoutout giveaway, simply subscribe and comment, "I subbed," and you will be entered. This shoutout giveaway goes to @AliCrow8069. Thanks for being a part of the family. Let's get back to the next crazy foreshadow. Now, let's talk about the time Gojo literally predicted the future. In chapter 12 of the manga, Gojo tells Yuji he doesn't have an innate talent for Jujutsu. But right after, he hints that Yuji might one day use Sukuna's techniques. Fast forward to nearly 200 chapters later, and Yuji is actually able to wield Sukuna's techniques like cleave, which is just crazy. Moving on, if you slow down this scene, you'll notice a series of hand signs. At first glance, they might seem like random gestures, but they actually foreshadow every domain expansion before we see them in the series. The first hand sign is for Sukuna's malevolent shrine, the second for Mahito's self-embodiment of perfection, followed by Dagon's domain. The fourth is for Jogo's coffin of the Iron Mountain, the fifth for Choso's piercing blood, the sixth for Toro's boogie woogie, the seventh for Megumi's summoning of Mahoraga, and the eighth and final hand sign is for Gojo's infinite void. During the fight between Jogo and Sukuna, Sukuna effortlessly defeats him, but right after, with a lifeless expression, Sukuna asks Jogo, "Who are you?" At first, the question seemed random. However, a few episodes later, after Yuji defeats Mahito, Yuji, also with a lifeless expression, declares, "I am you," almost as if he was answering Sukuna's question. If we rewind all the way back to the first episode, you'll notice a scene where Megumi senses Sukuna's presence with Yuji. This moment left fans questioning things for years, with many speculating that maybe Yuji had one of Sukuna's fingers still inside him. But here's the catch. Yuji had already dropped the finger off before encountering Megumi, so why could he still sense Sukuna? The answer lies in a surprising twist. Yuji is a death-painting womb, just like Choso and his brothers. This revelation, which wasn't revealed until countless chapters later, explains why Megumi could sense Sukuna's presence with Yuji, even without the finger. This was foreshadowing Yuji's connection with Sukuna. Speaking of the first episode, if we look at the first chapter of the manga, we see a wooden structure that seems insignificant. However, in chapter 271, during the final chapters, this exact structure is revealed to hold Sukuna's last finger, foreshadowing a major moment from the start. Now those were some crazy foreshadowings, but if you want to see something even crazier, click on this video, where I uncover every crazy secret about the King of Curses, Sukuna. Go on, click it!